So please welcome Lieutenant Governor Duncan.
Morning, everybody. Great to be here. This group has meant a lot to me. I was just talking to Mike Dudgeon, who's my policy director and a great friend of this foundation, but I was trying to think back to kind of my first intersection with Georgia public policy, and it was even before I was elected as a state house rep. I think, where's Mike at? I keep randomly staring in your direction. So Mike had first brought me into the fold and really kind of brought me into a couple of these meetings, and then obviously as a state rep, I spent a lot of time just kind of bouncing ideas off. But I kind of walked away from my first meeting. I was like, I can't believe this. There's people that want to get things done like we do. And I see Buzz back there too. You're kind of behind the light. Some good friends there. I want to thank some great friends here. Kelly was a huge part of my story when I first got started as a state rep, and would come up with these crazy ideas, really just policy centered. And then also Kyle is doing a great job, and I want to personally thank Benita for what she has done for me along the way. I came to her with a crazy idea, a crazy op-ed. I'd never written an op-ed in my entire life. Every single English teacher I had growing up would have probably just rolled over and just could not believe that I wrote something that got published. But I came to her with an idea called the 4 C's: churches, charities, corporations, and citizens. And it really was centered around this notion of trying to solve the issues in and around poverty using churches, charities, corporations, and citizens, and not just leaning into bigger government. Because what I realized, like many of y'all realized, is that government programs have gotten decently good at trying to stabilize situations in and around poverty, but have really no trajectory in getting people out of poverty or out of that vicious cycle. And so I came to her with this idea of writing this little boxed up op-ed. She made a couple of edits to it, and sure enough, thank you for publishing that. It's still something I point back to each and every day, and has eventually run its course kind of across the country in a bunch of different newspapers. But it's this mindset that we've got to have, and it's one I bring to work with me every single day, that we just can't create a government program to solve problems. One, we can't afford it, and two, it's just inefficient and ineffective. I think the best thing we can do for somebody is help them get out of that situation, and by leaning into the community, by leaning into personal responsibility and those other elements that are just outside of a government program, I think is going to allow us to kind of separate ourselves from other states as to how we solve the challenges that we face. Because at the end of the day, the 4 C's bring things that government programs can't bring. They bring innovation. Government's not very good at innovating, if y'all haven't figured that out yet. They bring volunteerism, which still is free to this day, and certainly they bring exit strategy to the table. So thank you, Benita, for believing in that, and that's a huge part of why I'm here as your lieutenant governor. That definitely gave me a tailwind in the legislature to continue to move forward. What a difference a year makes. This time last year, I was just trying to figure out, kind of the role of lieutenant governor and whatnot. I just won an election. I don't know if y'all knew this, but I was an underdog. That's usually what most crowds do when I say that, because they truly believe how far of an underdog it is. And so it's really neat to be in this position. It's really neat to have the ability to work with my staff and with the legislature and with the Senate to really get to a position where we can get some work done. Y'all heard me talk a lot about policy over politics, and that was not just a campaign slogan. That is a job description for me each and every day, and it's one I put my staff in a position every day to play policy, not politics. I didn't get into this role to pad my resume. I got into this role to make a difference. I got into this role to be a part of big-time solutions and to really position Georgia as a leader in this nation as to how we tackle a lot of these issues that we face, and to really put us in a positive position going forward around our policies that we set. Today, as I was preparing, I looked, and I love this word mobility, right? I know that that's really a theme that's being presented. And I love the word mobility, but I think we have to go a little bit deeper than mobility to understand kind of what makes up the term mobility. And for me, it's 2 words that intersect, and I think are going to be a huge part of our future here in Georgia. It's innovation and technology, right? Mobility, in order to create mobility, whether it be education, healthcare, transportation, you pick you kind of pick your subject. You've got to have innovation and technology to kind of be a part of that, to partner with you along the way as you craft a strategy to create mobility. You probably have all heard me talk about this notion of wanting Georgia to be the technology capital of the East Coast. That's my economic development package, just kind of summed up in a sentence. And for me, to accomplish that, we've got to continue to do a lot of things to make that happen. Because we want to earn that title, right? We don't want to just, create some marketing flyers. We truly want to earn the title. And to do that, we've got to continue to really innovate around education and healthcare and investment to be able to get there. So let's unpack mobility a little bit. And really my first understanding of what mobility meant to the Georgia picture was around transportation when I was in the General Assembly. Obviously there's different visions, and I had kind of a contrarian view to transportation solutions when I was in the Georgia House, but I won't go down that path. But really, for me, the notion I got was we're not going to just completely solve our traffic issues by just pouring more concrete and building taller overpasses. There's got to be a cumulative solution that really comes at this. And so looking for innovative strategies to, whether it be around telecommuting, whether it be around incentives, whether it be around sprawl and spread. I just wanted to make sure that we had a viewpoint that allowed us to understand that mobility was not always trying to get the person to a position, but sometimes getting the position to the person. I think that's something that we can lead on here in Georgia. I'm going to give you an example of what this looks like. I live in Cumming, Forsyth County. There is no worse place to commute to the Georgia Capitol than Forsyth County, but I love it. And so my kids are in the public schools up there, and they do an amazing job educating kids. And we go to church up there, and it's just where we're going to live forever. Especially if my wife's making the decision. But so think about this. We literally plan on Fridays. We know that it's only going to take us 45 minutes to get here. But on Mondays through Thursdays, it's going to take us almost 2 hours. I have to plan that it's going to take a 2-hour commute because I don't want to be late to a meeting. And that's because on Fridays, a lot of people in our area, kind of up and down the 400 corridor, work from home. They work remotely. And so looking for that types of strategies and data points, that's what the private sector would do to unpack and kind of define what mobility might look like in that scenario. If we talk about education and what mobility looks like there, I really think about the opportunity to make that education centered around the child. One of the most eye-opening experiences to me as I traveled around the state for 2+ years begging for the job of lieutenant governor. Sometimes it feels like 20 years it took to do that. But one of the things that just was so hard for me to get my hands around was how different education was delivered in different parts of the state. It really was. It truly was eye-opening to me. I was fortunate to have always been a product of the public schools and always had a great education and always had great teachers and parents that supported kind of my efforts. But as you travel around the state, not every community is really as fortunate as Forsyth County and other communities to really deliver education in a way that is completely and unmistakably delivered around that child. And so looking for opportunities to deliver what I believe is the greatest gift the state of Georgia can give a child is a quality K-12 education. Looking for ways to deploy technology in the classroom, right? Looking for ways to reform standardized testing so that we don't wait for 3 or 4 months after the year ends to figure out if a kid was above or below grade. Deploying those tools into the classroom and allowing teachers to do what they want to do, and that's teach. I have never met a teacher, including my sister, who got into the teaching profession to become a millionaire. They got in there because they had a gift and they wanted to share it with others every single day of their career. And so we need to continue to look for ways to deploy that. One other thing that is important for us to do, and I can't create a law to do this, we need to remind parents and guardians that the education of their children is meant to be a true partnership with the school and not a drop-off and pick-up program. It is something that is absolutely astonishing to watch the way all communities, it just seems like there's this notion of, well, the school's going to do it. Just if you took 5 minutes a night to just sit down with your child and ask them, hey, what'd you learn today? What'd you talk about today? Do you still want to be a doctor? Who's your best friend? Who's your favorite teacher? Just create a dialogue of conversation that child has no doubt in their mind how important that education is to you and to them as we move forward. Healthcare is another area around mobility. This year, you got to watch us do a number of things in the General Assembly. I'm really proud of the governor's efforts on this. But we really tried to create a sense around Georgia that we want to absolutely dominate the healthcare space in a way that the entire nation watches what we're doing here and the way we innovate around healthcare. What you've seen here is, and obviously we're in the waiver process, and I won't go deep in the weeds there, but what we hopefully you've sensed is a modernization of the way we're going to deliver healthcare. And here's what I'll tell you: all 11 million Georgians, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, and everybody in between those gaps, believe the same thing to be the challenges: access and affordability, right? And so all this energy spent trying to figure out healthcare in partisan corners is a waste of time in my mind. It's trying to find a way to deliver solutions to the fact base, to the issues, to tackle those challenges. And if it gives better access to healthcare, whether it be in suburban or rural areas, and it increases the affordability spectrum, I'm all for it. Let's go talk about it. That's really the sense of what you've seen play out in the General Assembly this past year with the governor's lead. I think you'll continue to see that play out. We had a healthcare task force that I looked through the room, and there was a number of you that either participated in it or were in the room with us. But we had a healthcare task force this year that Mike Dudgeon and Regina Quick really championed on our staff. But it really was centered around this whole notion of price transparency and the right to shop, and how we can create a legislative tailwind for those two notions. Because around healthcare, I don't think anybody thinks it's a good idea to wait 2 or 3 weeks after you get home from the hospital to find out how much it cost you for a normal procedure. And so we're going to continue to really innovate and strategize. We want to invite the private sector into that discussion. I think, once again, the private sector is going to be much more efficient and much more advanced in how they solve a lot of these challenges around healthcare, and not just trying to look for ways to grow the size of government. Like I said before, for a decade, we've been trying to make healthcare policy decisions in partisan corners, and I think that's a mistake. I'm proud to be a part of a team here in Georgia that is absolutely focused on the problem of affordability and access. One other big part of kind of my job description, and hopefully folks have noticed this, and certainly at the end of 4 years, I want them to notice this. We want to be a part of a bunch of big policy wins, and we want to champion things, and we want Georgia to no doubt be a better place the day I leave office than the day I arrived. And certainly that inspires us each and every day. But I want folks to watch the way the Lieutenant Governor's office goes about our business. I want you to recognize, like I tell the Senate, every single member in the Senate in both caucuses, the currency I trade as Lieutenant Governor is honesty, right? That's the currency I trade. And as I've built a couple of businesses over the years, that's really the mindset that I've wanted to make sure my employees knew that's the currency I trade is honesty. It pains me to watch, as a House rep and then kind of this transition into the Lieutenant Governor's role, watching folks in politics willing to champion one cause, but to just completely jettison 4 or 5 other good causes to get one. Right? I think we need to be more acceptant, more understanding of the fact that we need to go issue by issue by issue. I think we'll build more relationships. I think we'll build more bipartisanship. I think we'll also produce better policy that we're proud about. That is, not in, the back rooms of unvetted policy. We've really tried to shine a lot of light, not in a disparaging way, but in a productive way in the Lieutenant Governor's office. Mike Dudgeon has been a huge part of, there you are, I keep forgetting where you're at, a huge part of that process for us in the Lieutenant Governor's role. And look, one of the things that just irks me, I guess that's the lack of a better word, is when somebody goes, well, that's just politics. I didn't run for this job. I didn't put my entire life on hold to just play politics. I got sent here to go do a job, and that job is to solve a lot of people's problems. And so that's what we're going to focus on. I think a great place to really focus your mind when you're trying to craft policy, and I get it, I can't make 11 million people happy on everything. But if you wake up every day as a legislator or as a lieutenant governor or governor or a policy stakeholder, and if you wake up and say, is this good for everybody, right? Can I create policy that absolutely helps everybody? And I think it's, from a partisan corner, it's a great way to walk into a room and remind folks, hey, our ideas are so good, they even help the people who don't vote for us, and genuinely mean it. When you're helping education in all corners of the state, that helps everybody. when you're figuring out ways to deliver more efficient, more effective, more innovative strategies around healthcare, you're helping everybody. When you're centering economic development around the technology capital of the East Coast, where you're developing a workforce that's helping 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, delivering jobs for not just seasons, but for generations, that helps everybody. I think it's a great starting point when you're starting to craft the policies. I'll close with this. I work for 11 million Georgians. It's great. It's daunting at sometimes. I mean, it's a little difficult to have 11 million bosses. But it's an honor to do that. And that's really the lens I look through as to how we solve a lot of these challenges. But I really want to kind of have this big vision of Georgia truly leading the nation, okay? I think there's a lot of challenges that we can solve here in Georgia around education, around healthcare, around tax policy, around other areas that are big, big riddles to solve. It's not just us wrestling with these things, it's the rest of the country. I want to solve those challenges here because the rest of the country's watching us, right? I think we're going to have an opportunity, and not politically watching us, but from an economic development and growth standpoint, we've got an opportunity to really, truly, pave the way for the entire country on how we solve a lot of these challenges that we face. And so for me, that's a huge part of what we're doing here and how we're vetting this stuff out here in Georgia. Our best days are in front of us. I truly believe that. I hope everybody in this room believes that. I hope everybody in the state believes that Georgia's best days are in front of us, because they are. Very few states, honestly, can wake up and say that. And I don't say that in a disparaging way. But most states are trying to chase history from 100 or 200 years ago to be who they used to be. Georgia has an opportunity to be who we want to be. And I think there's going to be high quality growth for us in the coming years. So thank you for the opportunity to serve as your Lieutenant Governor. Have a great day. Thanks for this organization and all that you guys have done to champion great policies. Thank you.